Nej, vet ni vad? Vi kör igång nu faktiskt. Hej! Jag ska gå över till det här läget. Hang on. Där ser vi mig. Inte jätteljusstarkt dock. Så vi gör så där så blir det lite bättre. Halloj! Och välkomna till den här streamen. Kanske ska jag till och med flytta dig lite längre bort. Så där va? Så syns jag lite rimligare. Vi har Starship Flight 8 på G här. Om deras stream ska börja om bara 5 minuter egentligen. Så därför kände jag att det är bra att sätta igång redan nu. Så vi får någon typ av försnack i alla fall. Och jag hoppas att den här streamen kommer funka bra. Jag streamar via Starlink just nu. Så genom den här streamen supportar vi tillsammans SpaceX Starship-program. Och det är väl lite roligt sådär. Jag tänker att man själv har faktiskt betalat för lite av den här raketen genom sitt abonnemang på Starlink. Men det betyder också att vi är beroende av hur väl satelliter är ovanför mig just nu för att kunna få kontakt med liksom så, om det plötsligt inte är så många satelliter ovanför så kanske vi tappar kontakten med streamen här. Men jag gjorde ett litet streamtest tidigare idag och det såg ut att funka bra. Igår gick det inte alls så bra, men jag tror att jag hade en alldeles för hög bitrate egentligen. Så nu kör vi på 5 megabit per sekund. Och jag tror att det funkar bra. Jag kan ju faktiskt gå in på min egen stream och dubbelkolla detta. Så att liksom, vi faktiskt har ett bra flöde här. För om den håller på att, om den liksom laggar och buffrar så finns ju ingen idé. Jag sitter här och snackar själv. Bra. Jag kan ju faktiskt gå in på min egen stream och dubbelkolla detta. Fan, vilken bra stream. Den här får man nästan gilla, va? Vi faktiskt har ett bra flöde här. vilken grym kille. Vad kunnig han ser ut. Men okej, så ja, det ser ut som att det funkar jättebra. Och då är det egentligen bara att vänta på att SpaceX drar igång sin stream. Sist så såg vi det tredje försöket att fånga en booster och den andra lyckade boosterlandningen, vilket är sjuka odds egentligen. Så det känns ju som att det är ganska sannolikt att vi får se en booster catch igen här då, eftersom de verkar vara så pass vanliga ändå. Det är ju lite konstigt när man bara har 3 stycken datapunkter. Men det känns ju ändå som ganska goda odds. Och sen då sist så tappade vi kontakten med Starship, alltså andra steget. Och strax därefter så visade det sig att den hade tappat kontrollen och dess flight termination system hade initierats och sprängts den. Så det blev en väldigt sjuk eldshow över Karibien. Så vad vi hoppas idag är egentligen att Starship, andra steget, tar sig långt. Och boostern är inte... Alltså för första gången sen de senaste typ 2-3... De senaste 3 streamsen i alla fall så är inte boostern det mest intressanta utan Starship är det mest intressanta. Men det sagt så om vi får ett booster catch så kommer det vara ögongodis minst sagt. Tjenare! Nu kör vi Lindberg. Vilket nick. Vi ska se här. Jag kan ju ta fram den här vyn då så ser ni vad jag ser. Så den här ska börja klockan 23:59 står det där. Och hör och häpna, det är nu. De börjar inte, de jävlarna. Men det är inte så konstigt. Sånt här har ju tidigare varit att ibland dröjer det lång tid. Från att de säger att de ska börja till att de börjar. Vi ska se här. Allting borde vara i sin ordning. Vi kan göra den här lite större så får ni lite mer att kolla på. Men det är en väldigt lågupplöst bild så det är inte så mycket att kolla på egentligen. Kan också passa på att ta upp SpaceX X-konto. Det är ju därifrån de kommer streama. Så om det är något strul med inbäddningen på hemsidan så är det ju SpaceX. Vi ska kolla på Watch Starships 8th test flight. Kolla, den här är igång. Då kollar vi på den istället. Boom! Jag får flytta den dit då. Hur är ljudet? Är jag för hög jämfört med liksom streamens ljud? SpaceX ljud? Jag misstänker att det kan vara så nämligen. I så fall kan jag sänka, men jag gör inte det förrän jag får någon feedback här faktiskt. Låter bra. Ja men vad bra, vad bra. Jag har en sparad grej från julen som jag också ska visa innan streamen går igång på riktigt. Om jag kan få upp den här. Jag har en Starship pepparkaka kvar från julen. Den är förmodligen, alltså man får typ säga dubbelkolla om det är oklart vad som är mögel och vad som är vetemjöl. Men det finns en jag vet inte om är det möjligt ens att kunna se, alltså ni ser att det är lite så här vita fläckar på den som inte är kristyren. Jag vet inte vad det är för något. Jag hoppas att det är vetemjöl. Jag vet inte, möglar pepparkakor på loppet om 2 månader. Hur som helst så finns den. Så det är min sista relic. Landa boost och så äter. Jag tänker äta den ändå. Vad fan, det är Starship pepparkaka. Jag tänker inte vaska den. Det är ju inte uppenbart att den är möglig i alla fall. Hade den varit så här grön och haft hår på sig, då hade jag inte ätit den oavsett vad boosten gjorde. Men nu det ser ut som att den är ätbar. Jag åt en pepparkaka för typ 2 veckor sedan som också var från julen. Eller ett par pepparkakor då åt jag. Och det gick ju hur som helst, hur lugnt som helst tänkte jag säga. It's good to be back. Detta blir också första sändningen från nya cribbet och första Starship-sändningen genom Starlink. Så det är jättelustigt tycker jag i alla fall. Och som jag sa i början av streamen, men jag vet inte om någon var här då, så innebär det ju att jag faktiskt bidragit till ekonomin för att bygga de här rymdskeppen och researchen runt omkring genom min Starlink-prenumeration. Så ja. Och bidragit till Elon Musks plånbok dessutom. Det är ju jättekul. It begins soon. Det är jävligt sent alltså. Alltså så här. Sist blev vi ju lite räddade av att Starship exploderade och tappade kontakten strax efter uppskjutning. Men om den ska vara igång hela flygningen nu. Det är alltså så här, typ 2 timmar till från nu som det här uppdraget kommer pågå. Vad kollar vi på då? Vi kollar på klockan 2. Kanske mot klockan 2:30. Eller nej, det tar väl bara typ 40 minuter från uppskjutning. Ja, det kan vara så att vi kommer undan innan klockan 1:30. 1:30 tror jag väl är en lagom tid att avsluta streamen om uppdraget genomgår sin fulla längd. Men nu är vi igång. Vi ser lite montage här från tidigare flygningar. Och ja, man blir inte trött på de bilderna alltså. Jag antar att det kommer bli en dagslandning för Starship rymdskeppet också idag.
Good afternoon and welcome to the 8th flight test of Starship. What a gorgeous view there on your screen from Starbase, Texas. It is currently 5:05 p.m. Central Time here, and we are looking forward to tonight's launch of the world's most powerful rocket. I'm Kate Tice, Senior Quality Systems Engineering Manager here at SpaceX.
And I'm Dan Hewitt with SpaceX Communications. Welcome to our first ever broadcast from Starbase's new Star Factory building.
Wow.
I've been waiting a while to say that.
De vågar vara i Starbase.
We are just a little over 39 minutes away and counting down to a liftoff at 5:45 p.m. Central Time.
Det är ju ganska nära uppskjutningsrampen.
Just behind us. Now, just over 1 month ago, we saw the second ever tower
Eller ska de
Super
evakuera det
there at that pad, and that was also the first ever flight of the next generation of ship.
Alltså de är borta vid de här byggnaderna. De byggnaderna är de i.
That's right. We completed our investigation following that mission, made a number of hardware operational changes for today's flight. We're going to detail all of those in just a few minutes. Important to remember though, progress in a developmental program like this one is not always linear.
Vänta, hur många är ni egentligen?
Putting that flight hardware in a flight environment to learn as fast as possible. And as always, primary payload for Starship flight test campaign is data.
The objectives for today's flight will look very similar to
Jag
Flight 7.
trodde ju
We're
att
planning to
Lindberg
deploy
var
simulated
du.
Starlink satellites and fly a range of experiments.
Det kanske
We've
det
moved
är.
a number of tiles from ship. We've removed a number of tiles from the ship for re-entry testing. We will also intentionally be stressing the flaps during re-entry so we
Vad ni
can
än har
test the limits
för
of ship
förnamn
before
och
we get
efternamn
ready
så är
to
ni
attempt
gott
future ship
välkomna
catches.
till
So,
streamen i alla
lots of
fall.
new testing happening today, and as always, excitement is definitely guaranteed.
And just checking on things at the pad real quick as we're under 38 minutes away.
Okej, också The Best of Sweden som inte har varken förnamn eller efternamn utan en pseudonym. Det får man också ha om man ska hit och kolla på Starship.
We're not tracking any technical issues, any range issues, any weather issues from a launch.
Fuelar den fan fort alltså. De bara ändras de här numren. Såg ni det? Att de bara plupp, plupp, plupp. Jävlar fort det går. Alltså jag hade ju antagit att man inte ens ser, alltså om man har tiondelar kanske att man skulle se sådär plupp, 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 inte hela procentenheter.
Towering over our human is the length of the Millennium Falcon, which comes in at 35 meters. Our Falcon 9 rocket, which is has the payload fairing attached, is double the height of the Millennium Falcon at 70 meters, and twice nearly the size of that is the fully stacked Starship, just over 123 meters tall. The ship is about 52 meters tall, and the Super Heavy-booster alone stands at about 71 meters. So it's pretty big. And we do have plans to make the ship and booster even taller in the future, if you can imagine.
And Starship features two major parts. We've got ship, that's the fully reusable upper stage powered by 6 Raptor engines. And then we have the Super Heavy-booster, that's fully reusable first stage with 33 of those Raptor engines.
Okej, så nu är ju den frågan lite redundant. Men det är tänkt att de ska flyga om 36 minuter tydligen.
Refuel, launch again with 0 refurb. And to make all of that happen, we also have stage 0. That's everything else you see around it that enables Starship to fly. The tower, the orbital launch mount, quick disconnects, prop form, everything. Zero is also just
Men då såg ni inte heller hur nära de är. De är i Starbase. De är vid fabriken som gör de här rymdraketerna. Det är bara några kilometer ifrån uppskjutningsrampen. Jag trodde att det var inom liksom, evakueringszonen. De har tidigare varit på, om det är South Padre Island som ligger typ, vadå? Typ en mil ifrån? Eller knappt en mil ifrån. Men vi får se om de klipper till studion igen, så man ser uppskjutningsrampen genom fönstret i studion, vilket är helt bisarrt.
And then to achieve full reusability, the ship has to survive entry not just once, but multiple times, every single time we send it up and bring it back. It does that with its heat shield, which we iterate on every single flight as we're just building towards a heat shield that requires no refurbishment. The one today, it's still composed of those thousands of hexagonal ceramic tiles, and they're designed to insulate the vehicle during that atmospheric reentry where some of those temperatures spike up as high as about 2,600 degrees Fahrenheit. That's one of the real big things we're still working on. Rapidly reusable heat shield has never existed in history, so just continuously improving on it right now is just a key focus for all of these flight tests.
And then there in between the first and second stages is our hot stage. We saw that in action first starting on flight 2. The hot staging maneuver is when the upper stage engines are ignited before the booster engines are completely cut off. With hot staging, the rocket never stops accelerating during separation. So it's actually more efficient than traditional stage separation, even though it sounds kind of crazy. You actually see it there on your screen now. That is one of the upgrades that we made on Flight 2, thanks to lessons that we learned on Flight 1. Several of the improvements and upgrades made for today's flight will unlock our ability to fly longer missions, something that we'll want to start doing, as we start doing orbital flights around Earth, and of course, eventually to Mars.
And ship definitely had a lot of lessons learned on Flight 7, but Super Heavy-booster put on one hell of a show for our second ever return to launch site.
Kolla, där ser ni uppskjutningsrampen bakom dem. Den är alltså bara ett par kilometer bort.
For more on that, get ready internet. We're going to be joined now by our buddy Chris out in Hawthorne. How's it going, Chris?
And thank you, Dan, and I couldn't agree more. Raptor 134 definitely started us down that path toward rapid reusability for the Raptor engines, and who knows, maybe we'll see it again. Stay tuned. Welcome everyone to Hawthorne, California. As you can hear, excitement is building as we count down to Starship's 8th flight test. Behind me, you can see one of our mission control rooms where engineers here in Hawthorne are assisting our flight control teams in Starbase, keeping an eye on various systems like Starship's avionics and, of course, those powerful Raptor engines that have quite a workout ahead of them today. Now, the Raptor engines you'll see and definitely hear today were manufactured right here in Hawthorne, California. And the engines on today's flight are all Raptor 2 engines, which is the same design we've been using for Starship's flight tests to date. And that includes all of the engines that have powered the 2 Super Heavy boosters back to Starbase for catch and recovery by Mechazilla. But here at SpaceX, we like to continuously improve our designs by eliminating the parts we don't need. We call this applying the algorithm, and that helps us simplify designs and drives us toward rapid, reliable reuse. And that's just what we're doing with our
Det här är en av de coolaste bilder som finns.
I love this family photo of the Raptors because it
Raptor 3 ser ut som CGI.
rocket design that Raptor 3 is. And you can really tell that we applied the algorithm here, questioning the requirements for the engine, finding the parts we didn't need, and then optimizing for manufacturability and reuse. Now, one of the cool things about Raptor 3 is that it eliminates the large and heavy engine heat shields, which means that when we move from the Raptor 2 to the Raptor 3 engines on Starship, each Raptor 3 engine is going to save us about 1.1 metric tons of mass, and that's a lot of mass when you multiply that by 39 or more engines. So Raptor 3 will help us increase Starship's efficiency, and as well as the amount of mass that Starship is able to deliver to space. And I gotta say personally, it's really exciting to be looking at the engine that will make life multiplanetary, beginning with Mars. But before we get to Mars, we still have a lot of important and critical development work to do, and it's flight tests like today's that help us do just that. So as we get ready for Flight 8, let's take a look back at last month's Flight 7.
Flight directors, go for launch. T-minus 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We have one.
Det är så häftigt med de här nästan genomskinliga utblåsen ur motorerna. Det är liksom man bara ser igenom 33 stycken raketstrålar liksom.
Max Q. Booster engine cut off. Stage separation. Goose backfire startup.
The launch team is go for tower catch.
We are go for booster return.
Det är så riktigt fina bilder här alltså. Det är riktigt bra filmat alltihopa. Och kolla här. Det ser så konstigt ut. När man tänker på att det där är 70 meter högt. Det är tornet som kommer ner här. Wow. Undrar om de börjar ha så här catch fever. Ju fler gånger de lyckas landa, desto mer kommer de säkert våga pusha. Hittills har de ju haft så här att ja, det är hundratals tester både på boostern och tornet som måste klicka för att vi ska gå in för landning. Men när börjar de nå stadiet där det kanske är en eller två av de här parametrarna som inte är go, men de ändå vågar göra det för att de tror att det ändå är en god chans att de lyckas. Det är ju typiskt SpaceX att våga pusha saker som kan resultera i liksom misslyckanden.
And harmonic response, in this case, it's essentially vibrations that we're seeing go through the structure. Rocket engines, as you can imagine, create an incredible amount of noise and vibration, which then passes through every component of that rocket. And on Flight 7, we saw those vibrations happening at a very specific frequency, and they were placing some extra stress on that hardware in Starship's propulsion system. This is most likely what led to propellant leaks that we saw that eventually cascaded into fires and ultimately ended with loss of contact with the ship.
As part of our investigation, our team at Starbase took this flight's ship through a 60-second static fire on the Starship test stand, which is 10 times longer than any previous static fire. During this test, we cycled through multiple throttle levels. In fact, you can see that on your screen now. We cycled through multiple throttle levels on the engines to recreate different conditions seen within the propulsion system during flight. And we tested some hardware changes on fuel feed lines to the Raptor vacuum engines.
This gave us just the extra data that we needed to eventually implement new hardware that's installed in those fuel feed lines for the RVAC, the Raptor vacuum engines. Also tweaked a couple of other things like the temperature of the propellant as we're feeding it to the engines. Also the throttle level that we set for those engines during ascent. Having the ability to do a 60-second static fire, just one of the ways we're trying to expand our test capabilities here at Starbase. You want to test like you fly as much as possible. That just helps us to iterate even faster.
Yeah, exactly. The fuel feed lines to the Raptor vacuum engines, which are unique to this upgraded version of ship, look like large straws running through the oxygen tank. Today's vehicle has one of the hardware configurations we tested in that extended static fire because it showed it was able to minimize the harmonic response and lower its amplitude or strength.
We also took another look at where those fires broke out, specifically in what we call the attic. That's an unpressurized space between just the bottom of the ship's liquid oxygen tank and the top of those engine heat shields. Fires in that space resulted in a loss of vehicle back on Flight 2 and also on Flight 7. So we took some steps to make it more resilient to leaks in the future. To do that, we added a pretty hefty purge system. It's going to use gaseous nitrogen. It's pretty similar to the CO2, the carbon dioxide system we use on booster. It essentially just floods the zone with an inert gas to prevent a fire from ever starting. And then in addition to this, we increased the attic's natural fire defense just by adding some additional vent holes. That helps to keep the attic pressure as close to just vacuum as humanly possible as Starship flies into space.
And for the next generation of ship, we're running the algorithm. We're going to
Vilket är
try and
normalt,
do
men liksom
the next best
framförallt
possible thing and
här,
some
det
of
bara
the unnecessary
sprutar
space.
ut.
So that ship will be using Raptor 3 engines, which will let us reduce the attic volume and eliminate the majority of joints that can leak into the space. In the end, what you're seeing take place with these changes is the core of our test program. We fly hardware all together in a real-world environment. We learn from the data. We make upgrades, and then we fly again. Ultimately, we fly to learn, and we're learning a lot.
That's right. Now, for today's flight test, we're going to be attempting to do everything we didn't get to do on Flight 7. We're still looking to get our first re-entry with this upgraded version of ship. Also intentionally trying to stress it to gather real-world data on just where the vehicle's boundaries are. So don't be surprised if it's not a smooth flight down to a landing for ship today. As always, it's going to start with liftoff, the 33 Raptor engines on Super Heavy igniting, lifting both it and Starship into its ascent, and it's going to power us all the way until hot staging.
Yeah, those engines on the ship will ignite while the ship is still attached to the booster. This will create that stage separation that we see there. Second stage will continue to go on its way. The booster will make a flip and come back here to the launch tower just behind Dan and I for hopefully what we will see the third ever booster catch.
Meanwhile, ship continues its ascent, gets into its suborbital place in space. We're going to have a test satellite deploy, pew-pew, Starlink's firing out. And then we're also going to do a Raptor relighting one of those sea-level engines before we get to ship re-entry.
Troubleshoot by the state machine.
And the ship will continue through, make its entry phase that lasts for a few minutes.
Vad fan sa de där?
And if some comms did just go out, we heard that an operator hold got in, so they are troubleshooting one issue. As we continue to move through prop load, we'll get some more details on what caused the hold. And if we start to reset to a new T0, we are still loading prop on the vehicle. So essentially putting that hold in means that if we get through everything and we hit that T-minus 40-second mark, we'll hold there and wait to clear the issue if we haven't cleared it at some point in the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, for those that are unfamiliar, that T-minus 40-second period is an opportunity to troubleshoot, unlike our Falcon timeline. So we do have a little bit of leeway. Yeah. Continuing on with today's plan, that ship will be making a soft splashdown in the Indian Ocean, as we have seen before. We are launching at 5:45 p.m. Today. This evening launch will allow us to have daytime views of the ship as it makes its splashdown. So.
Yeah,
good news.
It's a lot on ship's plate, but we're still hyper-focused on finding all of those real-world limits of Starship. We want to be able to prepare to return ship to launch site and catch it. A lot of these recent upgrades are just made to enable that to actually happen.
Flight 7 premiered a huge block of upgrades to the upper stage to add more capability to Starship. And with Flight 8 today, we're hoping to get through a full flight. Starting us off, the forward flaps got a redesign. They shrunk in size and shifted toward the top of the vehicle and away from the heat shield. And that will significantly reduce their exposure to re-entry heating. Also, by making Starship 2 meters taller, we added about 25% more propellant volume, along with propulsion upgrades such as vacuum jacketing of the feed lines, new fuel feed line system for Raptor vacuum engines, and an improved propulsion avionics module.
Yeah, ship got a little bit taller. That extra prop's going to allow us to fly those longer missions. We're not planning on stretching it a whole lot more beyond this in future ones, but then, you know, once we're flying the next version a lot, it'll be going. Just like the previous flight, a lot of tiles have been purposely removed. As again, we're trying to stress test all of the vulnerable areas, call this the missing tile test. Those tiles are removed in strategic locations all across the vehicle, including critical areas like those tanks and over the flap seals as we use this flight to just really push those boundaries. In addition to that, we have some metallic tiles, again, that are being tested, including one on the right of this animation that has some active cooling built in.
The vehicle's avionics also underwent a complete redesign with things like 4 upgraded Starlink terminals, combining Starlink, global navigation, and RF communications. You can see that location there on your screen. And on the sides of the vehicle, non-structural versions of the ship's catch fittings are installed to test the thermal performance, along with a smoothed and tapered edge on one section of the tile line to address hotspots that we observed during Flight 6.
And once more, we're back at testing some radar sensors on those tower catch arms. We did that last flight. We're doing it again as we look for some additional ways to measure the distance between the arms and the vehicle. Catching the ship's going to be pretty different from catching the booster. It does that flip right before, so your antennas are going to rapidly reorient. And so just having any extra sensors on the ground side, you're adding extra layers of control while the ship and tower talk to each other for a catch.
In another first, Starship will deploy 4 Starlink simulators. They are similar in size to our next-generation Starlink satellites. With unparalleled payload capacity and full reusability, Starship will be able to deploy our more advanced V3 Starlink satellites, which will revolutionize global connectivity with Starlink all over again.
Each one of those Starlink V3 launches on a Starship is going to add about 60 terabits of capacity to the Starlink network. To give you some context, that's about 20 times the capacity of what we're adding with every V2 mini launch in a Falcon 9 right now. That's going to help us expand Starlink's network, expand its impact in the coming years as we expand that access to high-speed internet all around the world.
Så småningom kommer man kunna streama i 4K.
The Starlink simulators that we're deploying today, they're going to be on the same.
Och ha lite snabbare uppladdningshastighet. Det tar mig typ en timme att ladda upp en YouTube-video just nu och det är lite painful. Har bara 20 megabit upp, även om jag ofta har liksom över 100 megabit ner. Så för mig som jobbar med YouTube mycket så är det jobbigt att uppladdningshastigheten är så långsam.
Yeah, so just like you said earlier, Dan, there's a lot on Starship's plate for today. But one of the hallmarks of these Starship flights are the incredible views that we get throughout the flight, courtesy of Starlink. Every day, we're working to expand the Starlink network both on Earth and in space. For how all this connects us to the big mission, let's head back to Chris.
Thanks, Kate. And as fans of Starship may know that Starlink enables us to bring you a lot of those unprecedented views, both from space and on Earth. Personally, I love all those epic views of the plasma wrapping around Starship during re-entry. So thank you to our Starlink teams who enable all of those amazing views and the information we get. Now, in addition to the dozens of cameras on Starship itself, as you see on your screen here, we also have mobile Starlink camera kits deployed in the middle of the Indian Ocean, as you're seeing from a previous flight. Starlink also allows us to connect our aerial
Det är så bojarna ser ut. Det är som små swimmingpooler.
Spots around Texas and the world. And that's all part of how it comes together to help us tell the incredible story of Starship both on and off the planet. So thanks to Starlink, Starship is now capable of streaming more than 120 megabits per second of real-time high-definition video and telemetry through every phase of flight. This not only provides those incredible views of re-entry for all of us, but also the invaluable engineering data to help our engineers rapidly iterate across all systems of Starship. And all of that streaming data today will be put to good use with the more than 30 cameras that are on the vehicle for today's flight. Now, Starlink is the world's largest satellite constellation operating in low Earth orbit to deliver high-speed, low-latency broadband internet. This provides internet access to people around the world, many of whom have never had connectivity before. As of today, Starlink is serving more than 125 countries, territories, and other markets, and has more than 5 million active customers and counting. But to meet the growing global demand for high-speed internet, SpaceX recently expanded its factory at Bastrop, Texas, and introduced Starlink Mini as well as an upgraded version of the Starlink standard kit. Here's our first ever look inside our brand new Bastrop facility.
There's like an interesting stat where like the odds of being struck by lightning in your lifetime are like about 1 in 15,000. And we make 15,000 dishes a day. If the odds of a defect happening are the same odds as being struck by lightning in your lifetime, it's almost guaranteed to happen one time in this factory a day. So you have to have like a very intense focus on quality.
Right now, we're in Bastrop, Texas at the Starlink manufacturing site, just about 20 miles east of downtown Austin. So the main function of this site is to produce our standard Starlink kits. Right now, we're producing 15,000 a day straight out of the factory. Raw plastic pellets come in, raw aluminum comes in, and we make those into the Starlink kits and then ship them right out to customers' homes.
Helt galet. 15 000 om dagen.
When you manufacture the product that you design in-house, you're forced to live with the mistakes. What that means is that you're very motivated to quickly innovate and iterate such that you can rapidly improve the process. Our previous generation of the production line was maxed out in terms of capability. And the demand for Starlink has kept growing. So
ja, det är en kamp att vara ett svenskt SpaceX-fan alltså. Men vi får dagsljus både på uppskjutningsrampen och på landningssajten, så it's a heavy price, but it's all worth it in the end. Förutom någon skrubbar. Då är det tråkigt, för då har man kastat bort morgondagens arbetsdag i onödan.
I can't understate the hard work of all the employees at this factory who've made this a reality. Less than 2 years ago, this was an empty building with no employees. And over the last 20 months, we've built a factory from scratch. We've gone from producing 0 kits to over 70,000 a week. And we've gone from 0 employees to over 1,000.
And it is incredible to see all of the tech in that facility that will help millions of people around the world the way they want to use it and the way that they need to use that technology. Definitely a lot of good things to come from our Bastrop facility. And while we're talking about the infrastructure that enables us to do all of these amazing things, you've probably seen some changes recently around Starbase. Coming online this year is the second tower at Starbase, and this tower has redesigned chopsticks and is built to accommodate the next generation of Starship and Super Heavy. It will have a redesigned launch mount and flame diverter system built to be rapidly reusable and hardy enough to withstand hundreds of launches at a time. Now, over at the production site down the road, we're also building a new integration and refurbishment facility called Gigabay. And Gigabay, as the name implies, will allow us to process more Starships at the same time over our current megabays. But Gigabay isn't just for Texas. If that weren't exciting enough, we're also further expanding Starship operations into Florida, bringing production and launch capabilities to the Space Coast. As Starship flight testing, development, and launch cadence continues to pick up pace at Starbase in Texas, over in Florida, we're building a Gigabay as well. Gigabay will stand 380 feet tall and will provide about 46.5 million cubic feet of interior processing space and about 815,000 square feet of workspace. Now, as environmental impact statements continue for potential Starship launches and flights from both Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center and Launch Complex 37 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station,
att jag har sparat en Starship pepparkaka från innan julafton för detta tillfället. Och alltså, jag vet inte, det är inte uppenbart om de här små vita fläckarna som inte är kristyr, om det är vetemjöl eller mögel. Men jag tror att det är vetemjöl. Hur som helst så ska denna förtäras ikväll, givet att flygningen sker. Och välkommen till streamen Failord. Kul att se dig här också.
I could talk about this stuff for literally hours on end, but we've got a Starship to launch today. So how are things looking 11 minutes before launch here?
Yeah, it's pretty cool that we're getting close to go time. Quick update on range and weather. For the range, the area around the pad has been well cleared. This includes the land, air, and sea space. So all is clear on the range front. That also applies to over in the Indian Ocean. The sea and airspace has been cleared as well for ship's re-entry. Once again, we are making a soft splashdown in the Indian Ocean. So just the buoy cams are out there and we'll get some great videos once again.
De här kommentatorerna, de är i de här husen. Det är inte långt ifrån uppskjutningsrampen.
So it's not perfect, but it's not bad. Visibility also not so awesome. We can see
det är första gången de sänder därifrån. Jag vet inte om de har haft mission control där och har det och alltid haft. Men det känns som att det är för nära för att folk ska få vara där.
We did hear talk about a flight control hold going in, so just a reminder, all that means is we wouldn't be able to pass that T-minus 40-second mark. They're literally talking about it right now on the loops that they think they've got the problem figured out. It was an issue on the booster where we think we will be clear by about the T-minus 2-minute mark and we will be able to move right through that T-minus 40.
Exakt! Det är så man löser det. Trycker Nocco som frukost. Jag börjar varje dag med en X-gamer alltså. Jag skakar till med en X-gamer och så sätter jag mig vid datorn och börjar jobba. Det är banger.
Did all of our booster and ship tank purges, got them ready for prop load, chill down the pad, which you can see all the cryo right now. Chilling. Things are pretty chilly out there. Prop load's been going. We just did a flap check out. We also do a wiggle check out on the chopstick arms as well. We are going to continue loading prop for about another 6 minutes. We're going to close ship at about 3 minutes, 20 seconds before launch. Booster just about 30 seconds later. So we've had at least one issue that we're still working in the background, expecting that to clear before we hit that kind of that hold gate at T-minus 40 seconds, and looking good.
Yeah, so bottom line, things are looking good for liftoff here in just under 9 minutes. We're now at, looks like 8 minutes and 49 seconds. So everything's looking green so far.
Yeah. Before we get any closer to liftoff, I need to shamelessly plug Starbase. I'm one of just a couple thousand people who work here, soon to be the newest city in Texas at Starbase, and we're the largest employer in the area. We're always hiring, so visit spacex.com/careers, see all the openings. It's where the future's being built, and it's a future we can all be pretty excited about. So yeah, come work here. Anyway, back to our regularly scheduled program. Let's launch a rocket.
Vad tror du sannolikheten är om man får ett green card i USA?
As we mentioned before, flight controllers are
Vad är sannolikheten när man blir antagen på SpaceX?
About 6 miles away from the pad.
Det känns som att man måste vara riktigt jävla vass för att ha en chans alltså.
Certainly growing.
Yeah. And again, general status check. We're continuing
Starbase är...
We're
alltså, att kalla den en stad är ju lite löjligt egentligen. Det är väl att de registrerar det som en stad, men det är inte många invånare där. Det är några få hus som jag har förstått rätt. Jag tror inte de har expanderat det sen det var Boca Chica. I alla fall inte markant.
Following liftoff and after the two stages separate in flight, Super Heavy will return to
the
the launch
Starship
site, the same
exact
launch site that it lifted off from. Reignite its engines to slow the vehicle down. Here we see playback from a previous booster catch.
Utan det här då, för
booster catch.
jag bara vet, jag kommer aldrig kunna göra det där.
Catch the booster.
And just like
att ha den precisionen, alltså jag skulle inte kunna landa på en landing barge heller, alltså en båt som Falcon 9 gör. Jag siktar ju bara på gräsmattan och så bara landar någonstans ute i ruffen liksom. Det är den noggrannheten jag kan jobba med. Men det hade varit kul att bygga Starship och se genom re-entry om man kunde få... Om man kunde styra den utan reaction wheels och RCS, om man bara kunde använda vingarna för att styra orientationen. De har nog korvkiosk och systemet, eller motsvarande saker. De har en bar högst upp i ett av deras fabrikshus. Så det är ganska sjukt. Väldigt bra utsikt därifrån.
Sonic booms like these are unique to vehicles returning from space and are one of the hallmarks of reusable systems like our Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy vehicles. The general impact to those in the surrounding area of a sonic boom is basically a brief thunder-like noise, and I've heard sonic booms before, but I got to experience my first in-person Starship sonic boom on Flight 7, and I can confirm it's pretty fun to experience.
Just det. Faktiskt gå för att kolonisera.
And as someone who has heard sonic booms many times in Florida, they are definitely a hallmark, and what a way to announce a returning space vehicle's return for reuse. Now, here in California, as you can imagine, the excitement is growing here. The crowd is growing. Kate mentioned our flight controllers in Ad Astra in Texas. Here in Hawthorne, we also have controllers on console in Mission Control, helping those teams in Texas monitor Starship's various systems, including the avionics and those 39 Raptor engines that were built right here in Hawthorne. Now, with 4 minutes, 30 seconds to go, Dan and Kate, how are we looking for a launch today?
So we are still looking good. We're just about fully topped out on propellant on both vehicles. The closeout's going to be coming up in about a minute on ship, and then about 30 seconds later on the booster. We are still hearing chatter in the background about the booster issue that we're tracking. We may still be able to pass the hold, but if we need to hold at T-minus 40 seconds, we have several minutes that we can hang out there and work to just kind of troubleshoot those final issues before we get the go. Once we're fully loaded on prop, which is coming up soon, we've got just shy of 11 million pounds of liquid oxygen, liquid methane on both of those stages.
Men det är ett jävligt roligt spel egentligen alltså. När man väl kommer in i det. Jag vet inte hur mycket du har kört det, men det är... Det är ett så givande spel.
Now, in the next few minutes,
det är få spel som lyckas vara så roliga och samtidigt faktiskt lärorika.
Safety system will be armed and thrust vector control or TVC checkouts will be performed. As we said, if we do need to hold, it would come at that T-minus 40-second mark. That is the point in the countdown where we can pause to wait for final checkouts or pressurization, or if we need to continue to work through that issue. So, once we pass through the T-minus 40-second mark, a number of things are going to happen.
ballt
quite
att se
quickly.
det
The ground
bli
spin
vad
and
det
ignition
tänkte bli.
systems come up to flight pressure. The ship's going to go on to internal power. And after that, the quick...
Vad fan? Nej. Det var den här jag tänkte kopiera. Men nu...
disconnect or QD arm lockout is removed in preparation
Sådär,
for
va?
retraction
Jag tänkte
shortly
bara säga
after
att för er
T0.
som vill se ännu mer
Once we do
live.
pass that T-minus 40 seconds,
För
we
det blir ju
still have the ability to
ungefär
recycle the
10
count
sekunders
under
delay
certain conditions back to
från
that
min
T-minus 40
stream.
seconds
Så
and
ni vill
hold
se
there to
helt
assess
direkt
what happened
så kan ni
and
gå
if
in
we
på
can proceed
SpaceX
again
egna
to
broadcast
T0,
här,
but
va?
that's only in certain situations.
Men
so we're just about
vill ni
2.5
stanna så får ni gott göra det också.
away. We do have a couple of things like
Men då blir det
if we
ytterligare
hit
lite
T-minus 10
delay,
seconds and
helt
you see
enkelt.
water start flowing out of the
Nu är vi 12 pers här.
that
Trevligt.
is a reason for us to
Nu
scrub
blir det
for the
åka
day
om
is
2 minuter.
once it's turned on, it doesn't turn off. And then we'll have to refill the tanks on both the water farm and the prop farm. Our team's gotten really good at refilling stuff really quick so we can reposition for about a 24-hour recycle
åka till Duna.
if we need to. But
det är faktiskt, och så säger du att du saknar kreativitet.
Just under 2 minutes away.
Det där var ett jättebra
NO-projekt. Mark while they still talk through a couple of troubleshooting steps.
Wow.
But again, if we hold there, we can hold there for several minutes, even with all prop fully loaded on the vehicle, before we can release the hold and
att
decide
åka
to
till
move forward.
Duna kräver ju ganska mycket fingerfärdighet i spelet. Eller du är ju kompetent spelare då liksom. De flesta typ verkar komma till mun och sen ge upp på spelet eller sådär.
All right, less than a minute and a half away. Again, keep your eye on the clock. Look for T-minus 40. We may hold there. It's not a rocket launch unless you're talking nonstop in the background until right before you lift off.
Once again, if we hold at T-minus 40 seconds, we have...
Ja, men nu ska jag i alla fall hålla käften.
Minutes.
Tills de flyger. Sen kommer jag inte kunna hålla käften. 40 sek.
As we're about 15 seconds away, we did just hear we are going to hold at T-minus 40. So look for the clock to pause when we hit T-minus 40 as they finish troubleshooting. And then we'll let you know as soon as we start hearing more.
Spännande.
If that clock's when that clock's gonna start rolling. So holding at T-minus 40. The team's talking in the background, still troubleshooting. And we can hang out here for a couple of minutes.
Alla, det är ganska många KSP-gibbare då i chatten.
All right, and it sounds like we cleared the issue on the booster. We're now holding for a late breaking issue with ship. So they're talking through that right now.
Dan, you mentioned things that we've gotten really good at. It's incredible to think that we just stacked this vehicle earlier this morning, and we're already, through prop load. Prop load's pretty much complete and ready to go. It's a very slimmed down timeline.
Yeah, this by far will be our fastest. We stacked the thing for the first time ever with these vehicles less than 24 hours ago. We really want to get to a point where we can, fly rapidly, fly as quickly as possible. And so this is definitely a case to try and push that forward. No wet dress or anything like that with these vehicles.
Absolutely.
Små marginaler för att landa på
Duna. Come back for a successful landing. You were talking about the rapid part of rapid reusability. This booster may fly on a future Starship flight if we're able to catch it and bring it back online. So for those of you that have just recently joined us, we have paused at T-minus 40 seconds just to assess.
Ja, just det. Jag antog att det var... Eller jag läste inte exakt vad du skrev. Jag glansade förbi det och det var så jag tolkade det i alla fall. Det är ett vanligare problem än...
a solution and we will be able to proceed, but we have some chatter on some nets indicating that we're just holding here for a few more seconds. This is a great opportunity for the teams. This is unique on Starship. We don't have this ability on Falcon to hold here, partially because there's just so much propellant that it takes longer as a whole for it to cool down with that amount of volume that we have compared to the Falcon vehicle. But this T-minus 40-second hold is pretty cool because basically everything that would have been a scrub is actually just an opportunity to hold here and work through it. Or I should say
det är väldigt bra.
Not everything. Where,
Det är ganska sjukt att Falcon 9 måste flyga direkt när den, alltså på 00-slaget och inte kan vänta i några sekunder liksom. Och om man dessutom då tänker hur jävla reliable de gör det. Det verkar som att de aldrig har några problem som helst med Falcon 9 längre. Den lyfter ju på samma, eller lyfter på sitt bestämda tidslag varannan dag mer eller mindre. Helt galet. Vad har jag för tankar kring Kitten Space Agency? Jag tror att det är skadligt att de har valt att göra det till just katter. Jag tror att katter kommer få folk inte lika intresserade som Kerbals, som var en egen alien-art liksom. Katter är lite för, ska jag säga, orealistiskt. Förstås är ju Kerbals ännu mer orealistiskt, men Kerbals, vi vet att katter inte flyger i rymden liksom. Vi kan inte garantera att Kerbals inte flyger i rymden, för vi vet inte vad Kerbals är liksom, right? Så det, på något sätt makar det mer sens att ha små grod-aliens än katter. Men jag hoppas ju att Kitten Space Agency blir stort. Om jag förstått det rätt så har de ganska många bra utvecklare från Kerbal Space Program och så. Och det kanske kan bli det som Kerbal Space Program 2 lovade skulle vara liksom. Och i så fall så skiter jag i vilken jävla art det är som flyger, såklart.
Right, if you're just tuning in, we are still holding at this T-minus 40-second gate. We cleared an issue on the booster that we were working up until the hold, still working one on ship, and team still continuing to discuss in the background. We can still hold here for several more minutes. If we're not able to resolve the issue or find a workaround, then we would have to essentially scrub and stand down for the day. If that does happen, we can go as early as tomorrow, but that clearly depends on what work we might need to do to fix any issues. So just obviously stay tuned. But right now, we're a little over 5 minutes into this hold today. We've got a couple more minutes that we can hold at T-minus 40 before we have to kick out. Essentially, looking at a lot of those propellant temperatures on both vehicles, you want those to stay in pretty specific ranges for engine startup and things like that. That's what generally drives how long we can hold at T-minus 40. So still hanging out. As soon as we hear an update on the ship, we will let you know.
Ja, det lär ju inte vara liksom, oh shit, jag glömde sätta på den här motorn, jag får springa dit och skruva på den nu liksom.
It's starting to sound like we might have a decision real soon.
Oj, spännande. Låt det vara en flygning idag då, det hade varit
all right,
så
you see the clock rolling.
Oh!
It is time to go
okay.
to launch.
Okay!
So, 30 seconds to go.
Nej, nu blev det 40 igen.
And we just heard a hold.
Men vad fan!
Psych. No. So we did kick out back to the T-minus 40 hold.
Fan vad de edgar mig. Ja, vänta grabbar, vänta. Kommer om 5. Jag har hört att Musk gör alla sina tweets från toastolen. Så vi kan se om han just tweetat någonting.
From the booster itself. So We are now going to hang out here again at T-minus 40. They've got a couple more troubleshooting steps that they can take. If we're able to get through that, we can start counting down again. If not, we could always offload and try again on either tomorrow or another day. But right now, we're not done for the day yet. Still holding at T-minus 40 seconds. And as soon as we hear some more, start seeing that clock move, you will know if we're going to go for our launch attempt today or if we just try it again another day. So keep listening in, and we'll have an update shortly.
Det känns så här jävla konstigt att ha drönare här. För man själv som är så här hobbydrönar-entusiast liksom, vet hur bajsnödigt det är med drönare och flygplatser. Du får inte vara i närheten av en flygplats. Så de go. Så det känns konstigt att ha drönare vid en raketflygplats.
Nej! Holds trip as we started counting down from T-minus 40 again, and it's not something we can change with small config tweaks. So we are going to offload our prop and then try again another day. So we're able to fully tank the vehicle. We're unable to lift off today, but just
en wet dress rehearsal helt enkelt.
So we are going to start offloading all of that propellant on the booster and the ship. As we talked a little bit earlier, we can go as soon as 24 hours later. We won't know that for sure until we dig into everything that kicked us out of our attempt today. So obviously just keep an eye on all of our updates. So we are
men det är väl bra. Då kan vi gå och lägga oss i tid idag ändå.
We will definitely let people know.
Yeah. So we want to thank everybody for tuning in. Unfortunately, we would have liked to lift off today, but the teams are doing the right thing and standing down while we troubleshoot, and we'll share more information as it becomes available, including when our next launch opportunity is. So be sure to keep an eye on our SpaceX account on X, and as I said, we'll share more information as it becomes available.
All right, thanks all for joining us today. We'll see you at the next attempt.
Ja, kolla. Jag skrubbar ju i alla fall inte mina uppdrag. Det är ofta jag lyfter utan en antenn och sen inser det när jag tappar kontakten med andra steget. Men jag lyfter i alla fall. Till skillnad från de här nobsen. Men så är det. Och jag vet inte, vill vi sitta och ha det gött här eller ska vi bara gå och lägga oss? Jag antar att vi bara går och lägger oss. Och så hoppas vi att det blir av imorgon, och om inte det så får vi väl se när nästa chans blir. Få följa på Twitter. Ni kan följa SpaceX på Twitter om ni vill få uppdateringar om när flygningen blir, och annars kommer jag såklart schemalägga en ny stream när det blir när det framgår. Tills dess så säger jag prenumerera för mera, så ses vi nästa avsnitt. Ja, vad du tänker göra. Hej då!